He stood alone until the alien princess took his side. Thousands of delegates from hundreds of star systems filled the floating terraces, their eyes glowing in colors humans could barely perceive. The hum of alien languages filled the air, some soft and musical, others harsh and guttural. Every species seemed to watch everything, analyzing every gesture, every word. But in the middle of all that, one human stood alone, as if the weight of the galaxy rested on his shoulders. Commander Elias Rowan did not look around nervously. He did not shift uncomfortably in the formal robes the assembly required. He stood straight, his dark eyes scanning the room, calm and steady. Unlike most humans in the hall who whispered nervously to one another, he seemed almost immune to fear. His mind was clear. His purpose was clear, and his voice, when he spoke, would carry a weight none expected. The charges against humanity were serious. The Yaltrix coalition, a conglomerate of 5 ancient empires, had accused the human race of violating interstellar law. They claimed humans attacked a border colony without reason and endangered the lives of innocent alien species. Humans were new to space, and mistakes were expected. But the accusations were designed to humiliate, not to seek justice. Many species in the hall expected humanity to bow, to apologize, to beg for mercy. Most would have. Elias ignored their expectations. When he rose to speak, the room quieted immediately. Some delegates leaned forward, curious. Others smirked, already assuming his defense would be pathetic. But Elias' calm tone carried authority. Humanity does not accept judgment from those who built their power on conquest, slavery, and lies, he said. His voice echoed through the hall, clear and steady. We defended our home, we defended our people. If that makes us guilty in your eyes, then perhaps your laws are wrong. A murmur ran through the hall. It was not the polite whisper of debate. It was shock. No human had ever spoken to the assembly like that. Many species had long studied humans and found them primitive, weak, and compliant. They expected submission. Instead, they saw defiance, raw and unwavering. The Yaltrix coalition spokesperson, a 6-limbed creature with translucent skin and eyes like molten silver, bared its fangs in anger. You dare to speak like an equal to the assembly. You are a young species, barely able to survive the vacuum of space. Who gave you the right to challenge us? Elias did not flinch. The right of survival, the right of any species that refuses to kneel. Humanity will not apologize for defending itself. We will not cower because others fear the strength we have yet to show. The hall erupted in chatter, some hissing, some laughing, some whispering urgently into their communicators. Many humans in the hall shrank into themselves, embarrassed or terrified, but Elias did not move. His eyes scanned the room, locking on those who whispered mockery. He could see their disbelief. He could see their doubt, and he did not care. Among the observers in the royal terrace sat Princess Sailthera, her long hands folded calmly in her lap. She had observed the assembly for centuries, learning the subtle rules of power and influence, but this display intrigued her. She leaned forward slightly, her violet eyes tracking Elias as he continued. The assembly demanded punishment. Reports had been sent to the leaders of every empire. Their conclusion was unanimous. Humanity must be made an example. Some demanded complete isolation. Others suggested harsher measures. The humans had no allies, no ancient treaties, no respected warriors in the galaxy. And yet one man, standing alone, refused to kneel. Elias' voice rose again, deliberate, cutting through the murmurs. You speak of laws and rules, yet every empire here has broken them. You call yourselves guardians of justice while building your dominions on the suffering of countless species. Humanity will not accept judgment from hypocrites. A deep silence followed. It was not complete quiet, but it was more powerful than any applause. Delegates turned to look at one another, unsure how to respond. This human did not threaten with weapons or technology. He threatened with something alien to them, moral courage. Salthera shifted in her seat. She had heard the stories of humans, young, reckless, fragile. Yet here was one who spoke not with fear but with conviction. His words carried an honesty she had rarely seen. Many species she knew were masters of deceit, words shaped to manipulate, to hide weakness. Elias spoke with nothing to hide. That alone was remarkable. The Yaltric spokesperson's voice broke the tense air. "You are arrogant, human. You do not understand your place. The assembly will vote and your species will face the consequences. Do you truly believe your words can save you?" Elias' expression was calm. He did not smile. "I do not believe words alone will save humanity. Humanity will survive because we refuse to accept annihilation quietly. Words, actions, courage, these are all part of survival. And make no mistake, if you attack us unjustly, you will find we can endure far more than you imagine." Some delegates whispered in disbelief. Others scoffed. Many wondered if the human had gone mad. But then a subtle change occurred. Some began to respect him, not as a fellow ruler, not as an equal in power, but as a being who defied fear itself. There was something in that defiance that could not be ignored. The assembly moved toward the vote. Delegates prepared to strip humanity of representation, to declare them a rogue species. Some would have been satisfied with this. Some expected humanity to crumble. But Elias stood tall, knowing that what mattered was not whether the assembly respected him now, but whether humans would ever bow. Outside the hall in the observation decks, other species whispered among themselves. Some were shocked, others were curious. But one set of eyes remained fixed on Elias. Princess Salthera felt something stir inside her, a rare mix of fascination and respect. This human, standing alone, might have more to offer than anyone realized. Hours passed as the assembly debated. The human delegates remained silent except for Elias. He answered questions calmly, never raising his voice unnecessarily, never reacting to insult or threat. He spoke like a soldier, a teacher, and a diplomat all at once. The galaxy watched, and for the first time humans were not merely observed, they were considered. Finally, the Yaltric spokesperson grew impatient. "Enough words. Humanity has no allies. You cannot win. Your defiance is meaningless. Prepare for judgment." Elias' eyes narrowed slightly. "Then let the record show that humanity stood unbowed. Let it be remembered that we did not seek war. But if war comes, humanity will respond with everything we have. You may see us as weak, as unworthy, as primitive. That is your choice. But do not mistake our youth for weakness. Do not mistake our silence for surrender." The hall was silent again, but this time it was different. There was a tension, a crack in the certainty of the powerful empires. Something had shifted. One human, alone among thousands, had reminded them of a simple truth. Courage could never be bought, borrowed, or faked. Princess Salthera leaned back slightly, thoughtful. She had lived centuries among the greatest rulers, commanders, and philosophers of the galaxy. She had never seen anyone, human or otherwise, speak with such clarity and courage. She felt a spark of something dangerous and wonderful, a belief that this species might be more than they appeared. That maybe, just maybe, humans could change the rules of the galaxy not with overwhelming power but with stubborn courage. As the vote approached, Elias did not flinch. He did not beg. He did not try to manipulate or charm. He only stood, alone but unbroken, and waited. The galaxy had long assumed humans were fragile, but this one man, standing in the center of the assembly, had proven that appearances were deceiving. The part ended with the final preparations for the vote. Delegates whispered, braced for conflict, and some even feared the unexpected consequences of underestimating humanity. And above it all, in her royal box, Princess Salthera made a decision. She would act, but not yet. She would watch, she would measure, and she would choose the moment to step forward. For now, humanity stood alone. But the galaxy was beginning to notice that even alone, They were not weak. The Galactic Assembly had never experienced such tension before. Delegates whispered urgently, exchanging messages in languages that sounded like music, rattles, and clicks. They had expected humanity to crumble under pressure, to apologize, to bow. Instead, they had been met with calm defiance from Commander Elias Rowan. Now, a different kind of shock was about to ripple through the chamber. High above the assembly, on her royal observation platform, Princess Sailthira leaned forward slightly. She had remained silent for decades, watching the games of power unfold. She had seen kings rise and fall, empires crumble and reform, alliances built and broken. But this human, this single representative, had caught her attention in a way no one else ever had. He did not fear the galaxy. He did not bend. He did not manipulate. He simply stood. Her advisors murmured nervously at her side. "Your Highness," one said, his voice tight with concern, "this human's defiance is dangerous. If you intervene, you risk your position, your throne, even your life." Sailthira's violet eyes did not waver from the floor of the assembly. "Dangerous?" she repeated softly. "Perhaps, or perhaps it is an opportunity. Humanity has something rare, courage that cannot be bought, borrowed, or threatened away. We must see where it leads." Her advisor's mouth opened, but no words came. She turned slightly, silencing him with a look. For the first time in centuries, she was making a choice not dictated by tradition, not by protocol, not even by logic, but by curiosity and a strange respect she had not expected to feel for another species. Back in the assembly hall, the Yaltrix spokesperson's 6 limbs twitched in anger. "Enough of words," it hissed. "Humanity's arrogance is intolerable. They will learn their place. We demand judgment." Elias remained calm. "We have done nothing unjust," he said firmly. "We will not accept judgment from those who built empires on the suffering of countless species. If you strike at us, know that we will respond, not for glory, not for conquest, but because survival leaves no choice." The assembly was on the brink of voting. The air was thick with tension, and even seasoned delegates sensed something unusual was about to occur. Many of them had never faced a species that did not shrink under the weight of power. They were used to subservience, to flattery, to excuses. They were not used to courage. Then, unexpectedly, a ripple of murmurs passed through the hall. All eyes turned upward as a clear, commanding voice cut through the tension. "I will speak." It was Princess Sailthira. Her voice, though soft to humans, carried through the hall as if the architecture itself obeyed her command. Whispers erupted. Royalty rarely spoke in the assembly, and when they did, it was carefully measured, neutral, cautious. But her tone was neither neutral nor cautious. It was deliberate, precise, and daring. "Your charges against humanity are based on assumption, fear, and incomplete understanding," she said. "You call them rogue, weak, and dangerous, yet you forget how history will judge your own empires. How many species have you conquered? How many colonies have you destroyed? How many lives were lost while you expanded your power?" The Yaltrix spokesperson recoiled, its body vibrating with shock and anger. "Princess, how dare you intervene? Humanity is not your concern." Sailthira did not waver. "Humanity is every species' concern when a single empire claims the right to dictate life and death without fair consideration. The records I have seen show that humans defended their colony against aggression. That is not a crime. It is survival." A murmur ran through the assembly. The power of her words was undeniable. Even those who disliked humans could not easily dismiss the logic. To speak out against the Yaltrix coalition in defense of humanity required not just authority but courage. And that courage stunned the hall. Elias watched carefully. He had anticipated her intervention, though he did not know which side she would take. Now, seeing the princess stand, publicly questioning the assembly, he felt a rare surge of hope. He nodded subtly, though he remained standing, unwavering. After her first speech, Sailthira requested a private meeting with Elias. Delegates protested, but the princess's word was law. Security cleared a small chamber on her observation platform. When Elias arrived, he was not intimidated by her presence. She was regal, composed, and undeniably powerful, but he met her gaze without flinching. "You are bold," she said softly, studying him. "Few species, even within the assembly, would stand alone and speak as you have. I do not yet trust humanity fully, but I respect your refusal to bow." Elias' voice was calm, his words measured. "I do not ask for trust. I ask only that you see humans as we are. We do not seek war. We do not seek conquest, but we will not kneel to threats or intimidation." Salthira tilted her head. "Many species would see your defiance and call it reckless. Some would say it is dangerous." "Perhaps," Elias admitted. "But what is survival without courage? What is life if we live in fear of others?" They studied each other in silence for a moment. The hall outside hummed with the distant noise of debate, but in that chamber there was only clarity. Salthira spoke again. "If I side openly with you, I risk my position. I risk my life. I could be deposed. Do you understand that?" Elias nodded. "I do. And I do not ask you to take that risk lightly. I only ask that you consider truth, not tradition. Humanity deserves fairness. That is all." Her expression softened slightly. "You are different from what I expected." "I hope so," Elias said simply. The meeting ended with no promises, only understanding. Elias returned to the assembly floor, standing ready for the next phase. Salthira returned to her seat, silently preparing her plan. She would not act rashly, but when the time came, she would make her choice known, and the galaxy would feel the shock of her intervention. Back in the assembly, the vote was about to begin. Delegates prepared their voting mechanisms, expecting a simple outcome: humanity's isolation or punishment. But Salthira rose suddenly, her voice clear and commanding. "I call for a delay," she said. "No vote may proceed until a full review of the facts has been completed. Humanity will remain under temporary protection under my authority." The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted, argued, and gestured wildly. Some hissed in fury, calling her interference illegal. Others whispered in surprise, questioning her authority. Rarely in recorded history had a princess interrupted the assembly so directly. To do so for humans, species recently deemed weak, was unthinkable. Elias stood quietly, letting the storm of sound wash over him. He understood the risk she had taken. If the assembly decided to ignore her, she could face exile, or worse. Yet her intervention had stopped the immediate threat to humanity. They had survived the first wave of danger, and now, for the first time, they had an ally, not just any ally, but a powerful, influential voice in the galaxy. Salthira returned to her observation platform, her hands folded calmly. She did not celebrate. She did not speak to her advisors. She simply watched, thinking through every possible consequence. She had chosen humanity's side, at least for now. That choice could change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Elias returned to the human delegation, who were still in shock. Many had expected defeat, humiliation, or exile. Now they looked at him, their eyes wide with disbelief and awe. He did not smile, but he allowed himself a small nod. Humanity had survived because of courage, defiance, and the unexpected intervention of an alien princess. The assembly would not forget this day. The empires would remember that humans, though young, were not as weak as they had assumed. And in the royal observation deck, Salthira made a silent promise to herself. She would watch humanity closely. They were unpredictable, dangerous in their own way, and fascinating. Perhaps they were exactly what the galaxy needed, a species willing to stand alone, refusing to bend, no matter the cost. The delay had bought humanity time, but it was only temporary. The assembly would resume. Enemies would plot. Tests would come. Yet Elias knew one thing with certainty: humanity was no longer alone. They had an ally, and that ally had seen their courage firsthand. That was more powerful than any weapon. As the hall slowly settled, whispers of speculation filled the air. Delegates debated whether Salthera's action would inspire other species, whether it would provoke war, whether it would save humanity or doom her. But no one doubted one thing: humanity had survived the first test. They had stood alone, and now, unexpectedly, they had someone powerful taking their side. Elias turned to his fellow human delegates. "This is only the beginning," he said quietly. "We have survived today, but tomorrow will bring new challenges. The galaxy does not forgive weakness, and humanity is learning that we do not need to ask for permission to survive." Outside the assembly hall, stars shimmered in silence, distant and indifferent. Yet within those walls, a single truth had begun to take hold. The galaxy had underestimated humanity. It was a mistake that could change everything. The stars outside humanity's border systems were calm, glittering silently against the void, but the peace was fragile. The news of Princess Salthera's intervention had traveled faster than anyone expected. Many species were curious, some were shocked, but the old powers, the empires that had always ruled the galaxy with iron hands, felt something else: fear. Fear of a young, defiant species that refused to bow. Fear of humans who would not kneel, and of the princess who had dared to defend them. The Yaltrix coalition, humiliated by the delay, decided to act. They did not announce their attack. They did not debate. They sent a small, specialized strike fleet to a human border colony called Nova Kepler. It was remote, lightly defended, and considered expendable by many in the galaxy. They assumed humans would collapse under the attack. They expected victory without effort. Commander Elias Rowan received the first reports in the Human Command Center on Terra Prime, the capital of Earth's space fleet. The console lights blinked red, alarms echoed softly, and his face remained calm. His team of officers and pilots glanced nervously at him. "The Yaltrix fleet is en route," a young officer reported. "They're trying to hit Nova Kepler. Our satellites detected multiple warships approaching at high speed. They're expecting minimal resistance." Elias did not react immediately. He placed a hand on the control console, his dark eyes scanning the incoming data. "Minimal resistance," he repeated slowly. "Then they will be surprised." The human officers exchanged glances. They knew Elias' reputation, but still, the calm confidence in his voice was unsettling. Most humans would panic in the face of overwhelming odds. Not Elias. "Prepare all ships," he said. "Alert the colony. Activate defensive protocols. And warn the civilians they will need to fight alongside us." The officer hesitated. "Sir, civilians, you want them to—" "Yes," Elias interrupted firmly. "This is our home. Everyone has a role. Survival is not a game of strength alone. It is a test of courage, creativity, and unity. If they refuse, they fail humanity. If they try, we survive." At Nova Kepler, the colony's leaders braced for the attack. Engineers and miners, who had never fired a weapon beyond practice simulations, were told to prepare defensive measures. They converted mining drones into patrol units, modified asteroid belts into shields, and rigged transport ships with automated turrets. Soldiers trained in standard combat adapted to civilian tactics. Every resource, no matter how humble, became a weapon or a shield. When the Yaltrix fleet arrived, they expected an easy target. Their ships moved with precision, confident in their superior technology and experience. But they were met with a storm of unexpected resistance. Mining drones exploded into the void, scattering flares and plasma traps. Asteroid belts shifted with hidden propulsion systems, colliding with incoming ships. Civilian ships, retrofitted with emergency weaponry, struck from angles no one anticipated. Elias observed from Terra Prime. His eyes narrowed, his fingers brushing the console lightly. He did not intervene directly. He only guided, directed, and calculated the impossible. The humans fought not with the arrogance of conquest, but with the desperation and ingenuity of survival. The battle was brutal. The Yaltrix strike fleet, accustomed to facing disciplined armies, was unprepared for the unpredictable tactics of humans. Every move they anticipated failed. Their numerical superiority became irrelevant. Ships were destroyed, trapped, or forced to retreat. Yet the humans paid a heavy price. Colonists died, engineers were injured, and soldiers faced losses far beyond what any normal battle would demand. Princess Sailthira observed the battle from her royal station. She had access to the live feed, seeing every maneuver, every explosion, every desperate act of courage. The humans did not fight for power, not for glory, but because survival demanded it, and they were terrifying in their resolve. They fight differently, she whispered almost to herself. They do not fear death, yet they do not act recklessly. They adapt, they endure, and they improvise. They are extraordinary. Her advisors shifted uneasily. Your Highness, you cannot interfere, one said. If you intervene, it will ignite war with the Yaltrix. They will accuse you of treason. Sailthira shook her head. I am not interfering, she said softly. I am merely observing, but I am learning. The galaxy has underestimated humanity. That is the danger. And perhaps the hope. Back on Nova Kepler, Elias moved among the human forces, not as a commander barking orders, but as a calm presence. He guided engineers to fortify weak points, coordinated pilots to cover the colony's perimeter, and encouraged civilians to trust their instincts. Even in chaos, he remained a center of order. The battle stretched over days. The Yaltrix fleet launched wave after wave of attacks, expecting to wear down the humans. But each assault failed, often disastrously. The humans fought with unity and resolve, refusing to give ground. They improvised constantly, turning even mistakes into advantages. Every loss was felt, but it only made them fight smarter, faster, and more creatively. In the command center, a young officer spoke hesitantly. Sir, our losses are high. They keep coming. Are we going to survive this? Elias looked at him steadily. We do not survive by fearing death. We survive by refusing to surrender, by learning, by standing together. We will survive because humanity does not quit. That is what makes us dangerous. That is what makes us strong. Meanwhile, Princess Sailthira continued to watch. She had prepared herself to see humans fail, to see the empire she protected face victory. But what she witnessed was something far more unexpected. Humanity did not break. Humanity did not beg. Humanity adapted. And in that adaptation, they revealed potential that even she had never fully imagined. The Yaltrix coalition began to realize they had underestimated humans. Reports of destroyed ships, failed attacks, and the resilience of the colony began to reach their commanders. Some began to question their assumptions. Others refused to accept it, sending more forces with blind confidence. But the humans were ready. They had learned from every attack, adjusted tactics, and predicted moves that no one thought possible. Elias coordinated a counteroffensive, not to conquer, not to strike first, but to protect. They used the colony's defenses to trap enemy ships in asteroid fields, turn gravity wells into obstacles, and force the enemy to retreat under heavy losses. Their strategy was not one of overwhelming force, but of intelligence, courage, and unity. Every citizen, every soldier, every pilot played a role. At the end of the 5th day, the Yaltrix strike fleet was forced to withdraw. The humans had survived. The colony stood battered but unbroken. Civilians emerged from shelters, soldiers limped from damaged ships, and engineers began repairs. Elias walked among them, silent, proud, and calm. He did not cheer. He did not celebrate. He simply acknowledged their endurance. Princess Sailthira watched the aftermath. She felt something she had not expected, admiration, yes, but also a quiet fear. If humans could survive such an attack, what might they do if truly threatened? The galaxy had underestimated them. And now she realized that mistake could not be easily forgiven. The human victory, though costly, sent a ripple through the galaxy. Neutral species began to reconsider their stance on humanity. Even some members of the Yaltrix coalition hesitated, realizing that this young species was not weak, not fragile, not easily dismissed. Back on Terra Prime, Elias addressed the human delegation. "This is only the beginning," he said quietly. "We have survived because we refused to bow. We have learned that unity and courage are our strongest weapons. Tomorrow, the galaxy will notice us in a way it cannot ignore, and humanity will be ready." Nova Kepler began rebuilding immediately. Every citizen contributed. Every soldier, every engineer, every civilian understood that survival required effort, courage, and cooperation. They were exhausted, but they were not broken. Humanity had proven something vital. They could endure what no one expected. Princess Salthera remained in her observation deck, considering her next move. She had intervened once, carefully and quietly, but the galaxy was changing. Humans were no longer just a young species to be watched. They were a force, perhaps even a challenge. And in the quiet of her thoughts, she realized something she had never anticipated. She wanted to see what they could become. The galaxy had learned one undeniable truth: humans fight differently. They fight not because they must, but because they refuse to be broken. And that refusal, that determination, was more dangerous than any weapon, more inspiring than any speech, and more powerful than any empire had imagined. Elias stood on the bridge of the Terra Prime flagship, looking out at the stars. The battle was over, but the war for recognition, respect, and survival had just begun. Humans were no longer alone. They had faced an attack designed to destroy them and had emerged stronger. And now, the galaxy would have to reconsider its assumptions. Princess Salthera's voice echoed in his mind, though he had not spoken to her since the assembly. She had seen their courage firsthand. That mattered more than anything. Humanity had proven that even a small, young species could survive against impossible odds if they refused to yield. And the galaxy would never forget it. The Galactic Assembly had convened again. The chamber was tense, charged with an electric energy that had not been felt for decades. Delegates whispered, argued, and consulted data streams. The events at Nova Kepler had shaken the galaxy. Reports of human ingenuity, courage, and endurance spread rapidly. Even those who had once dismissed humanity were beginning to reconsider. Commander Elias Rowan stood at the front of the human delegation, calm and composed. He did not look nervous. He did not fidget. He simply observed the assembly, aware that today would decide humanity's fate in the galaxy. But he also knew that survival was no longer the only goal. Humanity had proven it could endure. Now, it was time to secure its place among the stars. Princess Salthera sat in her royal observation box. She had followed the battle closely and studied every movement of the human forces. She had been impressed, not just by their skill, but by their unity. Humanity did not act out of arrogance or hunger for power. They acted because surrender was not an option, and now she would lend her voice, carefully and deliberately, to ensure the galaxy acknowledged the truth. The Yaltrix spokesperson, still reeling from the failed attack, tried to speak first. "The humans are reckless. Their defenses were barely functional. Their survival was due to luck, not skill. They are not fit to participate in galactic governance." Elias listened quietly. He had expected these arguments. Many would cling to prejudice, even in the face of evidence. But he also knew that actions spoke louder than words. Nova Kepler's survival was proof enough. Salthera stood, her posture regal and commanding. "Reckless?" she asked, her voice calm but sharp. "I have studied the battle closely. Humans were outnumbered, outgunned, and outmatched in every way. And yet they endured. They adapted. They fought not for conquest, but for survival. Is that recklessness or is it courage?" The hall fell silent. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably. No one had dared to contradict her tone. No one could. They showed qualities that many ancient empires have long forgotten, Selthira continued. Discipline, unity, creativity, and moral courage. They did not strike first. They did not seek revenge. They only defended what was theirs, and in doing so they have earned a voice in the assembly. The Yaltric spokesperson hissed, its 6 limbs twitching. Your Highness, you are biased. You are interfering. This is unprecedented. I am observing the truth, Selthira interrupted. I am protecting the principle of justice. The humans do not need favoritism. They need acknowledgement of their deeds, and that acknowledgement is what this assembly must now give. Elias stepped forward. His dark eyes swept the chamber. I speak not for glory, not for conquest, and not for revenge, he said, his voice steady. I speak for humanity. We have survived when the odds were impossible. We have adapted when others expected us to fail. We have fought because surrender is not an option, and we will continue to fight if necessary to defend ourselves and those who cannot defend their homes. Humanity asks only for a fair place among the stars, a voice in the assembly not as supplicants, but as equals. The delegates murmured among themselves. Some were inspired, others were still skeptical, but the facts were undeniable. Nova Kepler had survived. The humans had fought with courage, skill, and unity. And now, with Princess Selthira's support, the assembly could not ignore the truth. Selthira addressed the chamber once more. I propose an alliance between humanity and my empire, she said, not as overlords or subordinates, but as equals. Any attack on humanity will be considered an attack on my empire, and humanity shall have the same rights to participate in governance as any other species in this assembly. Gasps and whispers echoed through the hall. Some delegates cheered quietly, others groaned. Few had expected such a bold move. Selthira's words were not just protection for humanity, they were a declaration of a new balance in galactic power. Elias did not speak immediately. He allowed the assembly to process her proposal. Then he nodded, acknowledging her courage and wisdom. We accept this alliance, he said simply, not as a favor but as a mutual understanding. Humanity does not seek dominance. We seek fairness, respect, and the opportunity to stand alongside other species as equals. The assembly began deliberation. Votes were cast, debates held, and records examined. The human delegates listened quietly, aware that their fate hung in the balance. Yet there was a new feeling in the chamber: respect. The galaxy had underestimated humanity for too long, and that underestimation had shifted into awareness, and perhaps even admiration. Hours passed. Finally, the results were announced. Humanity was recognized as a full member of the Galactic Assembly. Their rights were acknowledged, their sovereignty protected, and the alliance with Princess Selthira's empire was formally recorded. The chamber erupted with murmurs, debates, and cautious applause. Humanity had survived the assembly, but more importantly, humanity had earned its place in the galaxy. Outside the hall, stars sparkled in the cold blackness, distant and indifferent. Yet humanity now stood among the stars with authority and respect. Elias walked through the corridors of the assembly, feeling a quiet pride. He did not celebrate, he did not gloat. He simply knew that humanity had passed a test older and more difficult than any battle, the test of courage, principle, and endurance in the face of impossible odds. At the same time, Princess Selthira watched from her platform. She felt satisfaction, yes, but also curiosity. Humans were unpredictable. They were dangerous in ways that no empire had anticipated. She had supported them not out of pity, but out of respect for their courage. And she knew that the galaxy would be forever changed by their presence. Back on Terra Prime, Elias addressed the human delegation and citizens observing the assembly. This is not the end, he said quietly. It is the beginning. Humanity has survived when it could have fallen. We have stood alone, and now we are not alone. We have allies, and the galaxy has learned that we are not weak. But the journey ahead will demand courage, wisdom, and unity from all of us. The galaxy will test us again, and when it does, we must stand as we always have, together, unbroken and unafraid. The human citizens cheered quietly, understanding the significance of this moment. For centuries, humanity had looked at the stars and wondered about the other species that inhabited them. Now those species knew humanity existed, not as a curiosity, not as a weakling, but as a force worthy of respect and partnership. In the royal observation deck, Princess Sailthira smiled faintly. She had intervened once, risking her position, her reputation, and her life. But she had made the right choice. Humans had proven their worth, and she had witnessed something remarkable, a species that could face the galaxy alone and survive, not through overwhelming power, but through courage, ingenuity, and unwavering determination. The victory was quiet but profound. Humanity had earned its place in the stars. They had survived attacks, defied expectations, and stood firm in principle. And in doing so, they had taught the galaxy an important lesson. Strength is not always measured by the size of your fleet, the age of your empire, or the power of your weapons. Sometimes strength is measured by courage, endurance, and the willingness to stand alone when the world expects you to fall. Elias walked along the corridors of the assembly, reflecting on everything that had happened. The battles had been brutal. The politics had been dangerous, but humanity had survived, and more than survived, they had thrived. They had demonstrated a capacity that no empire had anticipated. And for the first time, humans were no longer seen as insignificant, weak, or expendable. Princess Sailthira approached him after the assembly had adjourned. "You have changed the galaxy," she said softly, "not through force but through courage, and I am glad I chose to stand with you." Elias nodded. "We did not do it for recognition. We did it because we had no choice. Humanity does not surrender." She studied him for a long moment, then smiled faintly. "Perhaps that is exactly what the galaxy needs." The stars outside twinkled, distant and indifferent, yet humanity had earned its place among them. They had survived attacks, defied prejudice, and gained allies who respected their courage. The galaxy would never forget the day humans stood alone, and the day an alien princess chose to take their side. Elias looked out at the stars, feeling the weight of responsibility and the spark of hope. Humanity had proven itself, but the journey was just beginning. They would face more challenges, more battles, and more tests of courage. But for the first time, humanity knew something essential. Even alone, they could survive, and with allies, they could thrive. The galaxy had learned a lesson: never underestimate humanity. They could endure what others thought impossible, adapt when situations seemed hopeless, and fight with courage that no empire could match. And now, with allies, guidance, and respect, humanity's place among the stars was secure. The assembly would continue. Empires would plot. Rivals would scheme. But humanity would stand, unbroken, as equals in a galaxy that had long forgotten the meaning of courage. And for the first time in history, the galaxy understood that humanity's strength was not in weapons or technology alone. It was in their resolve, their unity, and their refusal to bow. The stars above Terra Prime shone silently. The human fleet prepared for its next mission. And somewhere far above the assembly, Princess Sailthira watched the galaxy and smiled. The alliance had been made. Humanity had been proven, and the galaxy had been forever changed. Humanity had stood alone until the alien princess took their side. And together, they had shown the galaxy that courage, determination, and unity could defy the impossible. He stood alone until the alien princess took his side.